Sergeant Marcus Hale gripped the steering wheel of his unmarked SUV with a steady hand, the engine's low hum a comforting rhythm against the quiet night as he navigated the winding suburban streets of Elmwood Heights, a place that had always felt like a fragile promise of stability after the chaos of his deployments. At 42, with 14 years of dedicated service in the Army under his belt, including 2 intense tours in the Middle East where he'd orchestrated precision drone operations that shielded countless lives from harm, Marcus had learned to cherish these simple drives home, moments where the weight of command and the echoes of distant explosions faded into the background hum of civilian life. The VFW Hall fundraiser that evening had run longer than expected, a gathering of fellow veterans sharing stories of resilience and loss over lukewarm coffee and faded photographs. But Marcus hadn't minded the delay. Honoring those who'd given everything was a ritual that grounded him, a reminder that his own sacrifices, nights away from his wife Lena's warm embrace and the infectious laughter of their 8-year-old daughter Maya, were part of something larger, something enduring. He pictured Maya now, tucked into bed with her favorite stuffed bear, dreaming of playground adventures, and Lena scrolling through her nursing shift notes on the couch, her strength the anchor that kept him steady through every sandstorm and strategy session. Elmwood Heights suited them perfectly, with its tree-lined blocks, community barbecues, and schools where Maya could thrive without the shadow of military bases looming large. Marcus had even started browsing real estate listings, envisioning a modest ranch-style home with a backyard big enough for a swing set and family game nights, a reward for the promotion to staff sergeant that felt tantalizingly close after his latest commendation for innovative intel work. But as the clock on the dashboard ticked past 12:17 a.m., that vision of peace fractured abruptly when a burst of flashing red and blue lights erupted in his rearview mirror, transforming the serene drive into an unwelcome intrusion that set his pulse quickening not from fear, but from the ingrained caution of a man who'd faced checkpoints in far more hostile territories. Instinct took over immediately, the same disciplined response that had kept him alive in high-stakes operations. He eased off the accelerator gradually to avoid any sudden maneuvers that could be misconstrued, activated his hazard lights with a deliberate flick, and scanned the surroundings for the safest spot to pull over, his eyes locking onto the brightly lit parking lot of a 24-hour pharmacy just ahead, its floodlights casting a reliable glow and security cameras perched high on the building's facade like silent sentinels, exactly the kind of open, observable area his training emphasized for any encounter that carried even a hint of uncertainty. He guided the SUV into the lot with smooth precision, positioning it parallel to the storefront to maximize visibility, and locked his hands firmly at the 10 and 2 positions on the wheel, palms open and empty, a posture designed to signal compliance and diffuse tension before a single word was exchanged. The patrol car behind him, a sleek black and white cruiser with Elmwood PD emblazoned on the side, surged to a halt mere feet away, its sirens cutting off abruptly, but the emergency lights continuing their relentless pulse, painting erratic crimson and sapphire patterns across the asphalt in the pharmacy's plate glass windows, turning what should have been a routine interaction into something that felt immediately charged, like the prelude to a storm Marcus had weathered too many times before. Officer Harlan Brooks, a 32-year-old veteran of 6 years on the force with a physique that spoke of high school football glory now softened by desk shifts and donut runs, stepped out of his vehicle with a purposeful stride that carried an undercurrent of aggression, his flashlight beam slicing through the darkness to pin Marcus's face in a harsh white glare, while his free hand rested casually yet pointedly near the butt of his service pistol holstered at his hip. Brooks's personnel file, though Marcus couldn't know it in that moment, was a patchwork of red flags, 4 formal complaints in the last 2 years for stops that veered into intimidation in neighborhoods with higher minority populations, each one investigated internally and dismissed as overzealous enthusiasm or miscommunication, allowing him to continue his patrols with the kind of unchecked confidence that bred complacency in those meant to serve and protect. Without preamble or courtesy, without the standard, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" that protocol demanded. Brooks rapped sharply on the window with his maglite, his voice cutting through the night like a blade. "Step out of the vehicle, right now." Marcus inhaled deeply, drawing on the de-escalation techniques honed in countless simulations and real-world crises, his response measured and professional, the tone of a leader who'd talked down heated situations in the field without raising his voice. "Good evening, officer. I'll step out slowly, keeping my hands visible at all times." My wallet is in my left front pocket, and the registration is in the glove compartment. I'll retrieve them one at a time if that's all right. Brooks's eyes narrowed to slits, his jaw tightening visibly in the flashlight's beam, as if the very act of Marcus's composure grated against some unspoken expectation, a flicker of irritation crossing his features that Marcus registered instantly as the spark of unnecessary conflict. I didn't ask for a rundown. Out. Now, Brooks snapped, his body language radiating an impatience that bordered on predatory, the kind of posturing Marcus had seen in less disciplined operators overseas who let ego eclipse judgment. Weighing the risks in a split second, remaining seated offered the relative safety of the dashboard camera's view, but could provoke further escalation, while exiting placed him in a more vulnerable position yet aligned with compliance guidelines. Marcus chose the path of least resistance, unfolding from the driver's seat with exaggerated slowness, his movements fluid and non-threatening, dressed in simple civilian attire of dark jeans and a plain black t-shirt that concealed nothing aggressive or out of place. His concealed carry holster, a legal accessory tucked discreetly at his ankle, permitted and registered as befitted an off-duty soldier entrusted with national security. "Turn around. Place your hands on the hood," Brooks commanded, his tone laced with an authority that felt more personal than procedural, stepping in close enough that Marcus could smell the faint trace of fast food grease on his uniform, mingled with the sharper tang of adrenaline-fueled tension. "Officer, may I ask the reason for the stop?" Marcus inquired evenly, positioning himself as directed against the cool metal of the SUV's hood, his voice carrying the respectful cadence of someone accustomed to high-pressure dialogues, where every word could tip the scales toward resolution or regret. Brooks pressed nearer, his breath hot against Marcus's ear as he began a pat-down that was far rougher than necessary, fingers probing with unnecessary force along seams and pockets, as if searching for justification rather than contraband. "You know exactly why. Driving through this area like it's your personal highway. Keep your mouth shut and eyes forward." There was no weave, no excess speed, no broken taillight, nothing but the arbitrary selection of a black man in a quiet suburb at an hour when most folks were abed. But Marcus held his silence, his mind a whirlwind of tactical assessment. No probable cause articulated, no Miranda rights read, just a palpable undercurrent of bias manifesting as unchecked power, a dynamic he'd analyzed in post-mission debriefs about community relations back home. Brooks's hand grazed the edge of the ankle holster during the frisk, and in an instant, his entire demeanor shifted from enforcer to accuser, yanking the compact pistol free with a triumphant grunt that echoed off the empty lot. "Well, look at this you're carrying without declaring. That's a problem." Marcus kept his voice level, refusing to let frustration color his words. "The permit is in the glove compartment along with the registration, officer. It's fully legal for off-duty carry, and I disclosed my intent to retrieve documents earlier, no threats intended or made." But Brooks was already amplifying his volume, angling his body toward the cruiser's dash-mounted camera as if performing for an invisible audience, his narrative taking shape in real time, suspect reaching for a concealed weapon during the stop, clear threat to officer safety. The accusation hung in the air like smoke, a deliberate distortion that Marcus felt coiling in his gut, recognizing it as the prelude to escalation, the kind of fabricated rationale that turned compliance into culpability. "My hands are raised and empty. Officer, I announced everything and followed every instruction," Marcus stated clearly, projecting for any recording device, his arms lifting slowly to shoulder height in a universal gesture of surrender. Yet Brooks retreated a step, drawing his service weapon in a fluid motion that spoke of muscle memory honed in too many unscrutinized encounters, his stance widening to a shooter's brace about 8 feet away, finger slipping inside the trigger guard with a casual menace that screamed intent over instinct. Marcus's combat-honed senses cataloged the details in a blur. Unstable footing suggesting nerves overtraining. Elevated breathing betraying premeditated aggression rather than reactive fear. The officer's eyes locked not in panic but in a cold calculation of dominance. "I'm an Army sergeant with 14 years of service, officer. I've got a family waiting at home, a wife, a little girl. Please, let's resolve this peacefully," Marcus urged, his tone steady as the North Star, infused with the earnest plea of a father more than the defiance of a fighter. Brooks's lip curled in a sneer that twisted his features into something ugly, his retort dripping with disdain. "Army? Out here in my town, that doesn't buy you a thing. You're just another driver who needs to learn his lane." The words landed like a verdict, stripping away rank and humanity in one breath, and in that suspended heartbeat, Marcus saw the truth etched plain. This wasn't about traffic or safety, it was about power asserted over someone perceived as out of place. A black man in a suit of civilian normalcy daring to navigate spaces deemed off-limits by unspoken rules. Time dilated as Brooks's finger tightened, the muzzle's black eye staring unblinking, and then the shot cracked through the night at precisely 12:23 a.m. A deafening thunderclap that reverberated off the pharmacy walls and sent a flock of startled birds exploding from nearby trees. The bullet tearing a searing path through Marcus's thigh muscle just above the knee, spinning him sideways and slamming him to the unyielding asphalt in a tangle of limbs and spilling blood that pooled warm and sticky beneath him. Agony ignited like wildfire. A white-hot lance that radiated up his leg and threatened to buckle his vision. But Marcus's training clamped down hard, breathed through it, assessed the damage, maintained situational awareness, clamping his free hand over the wound to stem the flow. Feeling the fabric of his jeans soak through instantly as arterial pressure pushed crimson between his fingers. He hit the ground hard, gravel biting into his shoulder, but stayed conscious, rolling slightly to keep Brooks in view as the officer loomed over him with the detached satisfaction of a task completed, already thumbing his radio to life with the practiced nonchalance of someone who'd walked this path before. Shots fired, one suspect down at the Elmwood Pharmacy lot. He went for his weapon during the stop, requesting immediate backup and medical response. Brooks reported, his voice a model of procedural calm, laced with just enough urgency to sell the story without overplaying it, because he knew the system inside out. Internal affairs would rubber stamp it, the union would lawyer it airtight, and in the court of public opinion, or more crucially, departmental loyalty, a fallen officer's account would always outweigh that of a wounded black civilian, military stripes or no. Brooks paced a slow circle around the scene, his boot nudging Marcus's dropped pistol a few inches closer to his outstretched hand for the inevitable photographs, muttering under his breath about textbook resistance as distant sirens began their wail, the first threads of his cover weaving tight. But in the midst of the haze and hurt, Marcus felt a faint vibration against his wrist, the subtle haptic pulse of his Army-issue smartwatch, a cutting-edge prototype from the cyber defense unit he'd consulted on, equipped with sensors that monitored everything from heart rate to ambient threats in real time. A gadget designed for the fog of war, but now proving its worth on home soil. The impact of his fall had jolted the accelerometer into alert mode. The sudden adrenaline surge spiked his biometrics across thresholds calibrated for distress. Embedded microsensors in the band detected the rapid blood loss and pressure drop from the wound, cross-referencing it against baseline health data from his last checkup. In less than 2 seconds, it executed its protocol flawlessly. An encrypted burst transmission rocketed out precise GPS coordinates of the lot, a threat assessment profile tagging the perpetrator as uniformed law enforcement with hostile indicators, a full dump of Marcus's vitals painting a picture of stabilizing but severe trauma, and even a snippet of buffered audio capturing the tail end of Brooks's fabricated radio call. The watch's tiny screen flickered briefly under Marcus's blood-smeared gaze. Emergency protocol engaged. Active duty asset under assault. Transmitting to Fort Liberty Command estimated response. 12 minutes. A wry, pained smile tugged at Marcus's lips despite the fire in his leg, the irony not lost on him as Brooks continued his orchestration, oblivious to the digital lifeline now unraveling his plans. This wasn't some off-the-shelf fitness tracker, but a classified tool meant to ensure no soldier was ever truly alone, bridging the gap between battlefield and backyard with unyielding efficiency. 25 miles south, deep in the fortified bowels of Fort Liberty's Joint Operations Center, the night shift hummed with routine until a priority chime pierced the air, screens blooming red across the central console as Lieutenant Kira Voss, a sharp-eyed 3-5-year-old ops specialist with a background in signals intelligence from her own deployment days, snapped to attention, her fingers flying over the keyboard to pull up the incoming packet. Sergeant Marcus Hale, clearance level Delta, attached to Pentagon Cyber Task Force. Gunshot wound confirmed. Perpetrator ID'd as local PD officer, no probable cause in prelim audio, she announced to the room, her voice cutting through the sudden tension like a knife, alerting the on-duty team of analysts and coordinators who shifted seamlessly into crisis mode. the center transforming from watchful dormancy to a hive of synchronized action. Voss routed the alert up the chain without delay, the secure line buzzing to life as Colonel Elena Reyes, 48, battle-hardened with faint scars from urban ops in Fallujah and now leading a specialized unit dedicated to safeguarding troops from emerging domestic vulnerabilities, answered on the second ring, her voice crisp despite being roused from a light sleep in her on-base quarters. "Talk to me, Kira. What's the vector?" Reyes demanded, already shrugging into a tactical vest over her pajamas, her mind leaping ahead to contingencies as Voss relayed the feed. Location, injury severity, the damning audio clip of Brooks's post-shot positioning. Civilian law enforcement. Ma'am, no escalation from Hale per biometrics. He's stable but losing volume. Chopper ETA 8 minutes. Reyes processed it in a heartbeat, her task force having flagged rising incidents of friction between military personnel and local forces, particularly in diverse communities where bias masqueraded as protocol. Mobilize the Rapid Response MP Unit 5 vehicles. Full tax support. Notify the Department of Justice Night Desk for warrant fast track under federal protections for active duty assets. And get me General Liam Torres at the Pentagon. This smells like the pattern we've been tracking. By 12:25 a.m., Reyes was behind the wheel of her armored SUV, convoy forming in her wake as she burned southbound on cleared lanes, her tablet mounted on the dash streaming live updates from the watch. Marcus's heart rate holding at 110, blood pressure dipping but not critically, the audio loop replaying Brooks's calm dispatch that rang so false against the raw plea in Marcus's final words. She patched through to General Torres en route, the silver-haired 8-year-old commander of over 50,000 troops at Fort Liberty coming online from his secure D.C. residence, his tone a blend of paternal concern and strategic steel forged from decades climbing the ranks. "Elena, walk me through the play-by-play. Hale's one of ours, top-shelf intel asset. If this is what it looks like, a pretext stop turning ugly, we're not treating it as local drama," Reyes briefed succinctly, the convoy's engines roaring as they hit highway speeds. "Affirmative, sir. Prelim shows racial undertones in the officer's rhetoric. No traffic violation logged." Hale's device captured it all. "We're asserting federal jurisdiction under the military protection statutes. DOJ's drafting arrest warrants now for deprivation of rights and assault on a federal employee." Torres absorbed it, his mind mapping the broader implications. His own briefings to the Joint Chiefs had highlighted a spike in such encounters, 47 documented cases in the past year alone, where service members faced undue aggression from overzealous policing, often laced with the kind of prejudice that eroded trust in the very institutions meant to uphold it. If the department circles wagons, as they always do, loop in the AG's Civil Rights Division, expedite everything. And Elena, get eyes on that scene before they scrub it. Hale's feed is gold, but we need boots for chain of custody. Back at the pharmacy lot, Brooks knelt briefly to adjust the scene one last time, his personal cell capturing angles that would bolster his report, the pistol artfully near Marcus's limp fingers, the SUV's door ajar as if in hasty exit before rising to direct arriving units with the assurance of a man who danced this dance unchallenged. Sirens grew louder, the first local backup, a pair of cruisers with lights blazing screeching into the lot, their officers spilling out to form a loose perimeter, one kneeling to check Marcus's pulse, while another nodded to Brooks. "You good? What happened?" Brooks launched into his rehearsed account, voice steady and authoritative. "Routine stop for suspicious driving. Guy gets twitchy, goes for the ankle piece. Had to neutralize, clean protocol." The responding detective, Lyle Grant, a lanky 40-something with 5 years riding shotgun to Brooks on night shifts, arrived moments later in his unmarked sedan, pulling up with the weary familiarity of someone who'd cleaned up similar messes before 3 times in the last 18 months, each waved through internal review with a nod from the chief. "Walk me, Harlan, backups here, medics 2 out," Grant said, notepad flipping open as he eyed the blood trail and Marcus's shallow breaths, the sergeant still conscious enough to murmur requests for his wife, but playing it subdued to avoid drawing fire. Brooks leaned in, keeping his tone low for the inner circle. "He fit the profile. Late night, wrong side of town. Announced nothing till I found it. Then boom, reach." Grant jotted notes without question, the blue code of silence binding them tighter than any oath, but even he felt a twinge as Marcus's watch buzzed faintly again, unnoticed, its signal pinging confirmations to the incoming federal net. Chief Harlan Voss, 55, broad-shouldered with 28 years grinding through the ranks, His career built on quelling disturbances and quietly quashing scandals rolled up in his personal Tahoe at 12:28. The lot now a flurry of flashing lights and radio chatter, medics working to stabilize Marcus on a backboard while local PDs strung yellow tape with half-hearted efficiency. Voss exited with the deliberate calm of a man who'd navigated worse settlements paid under the table. Internal probes derailed by loyal testimony, and clapped Brooks on the shoulder, his gravelly voice a balm of solidarity. "You holding? Give me the short version before the suits descend." Brooks obliged, embellishing just enough. Erratic weave through residential, pulls in compliant but eyes shifty. Pat down yields the iron. He lunges had no choice. Voss nodded approvingly, scanning the scene with a practiced eye, the gun's placement convincing under sodium lamps, the pharmacy cams too distant for clarity, Marcus's groans muffled by the oxygen mask, already mentally drafting the press release that would frame it as heroic restraint. "Solid work. Get your statement typed. I'll handle the chief's log." Medics haul him to county, keep it routine. They turned as the first blacked-out vans crested the access road, no markings but an aura of unyielding purpose, breaking to a halt with military precision that sent a ripple through the local responders, officers exchanging uneasy glances as troops in tactical vests and carrying restrained rifles deployed in a coordinated sweep, securing the perimeter with commands that brooked no argument. Federal military police stand down and clear the area. This is now a protected crime scene. Brooks's hand instinctively dropped toward his empty holster. He'd surrendered it moments earlier under protocol, his face paling as Colonel Reyes strode forward from the lead vehicle, her warrant folder held like a shield, flanked by agents in crisp FBI windbreakers. "Chief Voss, your cooperation is noted, but this falls under exclusive federal jurisdiction. Assault on an active duty U.S. Army sergeant constitutes a direct threat to national security assets. Officer Brooks, you are under arrest for deprivation of civil rights under color of law and attempted murder of a federal officer. Place your hands behind your back." The air thickened with disbelief and defiance, Voss sputtering protests about local authority and overreach while Grant froze mid-note. But the MPs moved like a well-oiled machine, cuffs snapping on Brooks with efficient clicks. Medics, now Army combat-trained, overriding the locals to airlift Marcus to the base trauma center, their chopper thumping overhead minutes later to extract him under floodlit rotors. Reyes met Voss's glare head-on, her voice unyielding. "Interfere further, and you'll join him in holding. We've got the full recording. Your officer's actions end here." As the convoy peeled out with Brooks in tow and evidence tech swarming the lot to log every pebble and pixel, Reyes keyed her radio to Torres. "Perpetrator secured. Hail en route to medevac. Initial sweep shows staging gun displaced post-incident. Cover-ups in motion, but we're ahead." In the chopper's bay, Marcus drifted on the edge of morphine fog. Lena's voice crackling through the pilot's relay. "I'm coming, love. Hold on," while his watch synced final data bursts, the digital thread that had turned victim into vanguard, ensuring the night that began in shadows would dawn with accountability's unrelenting light. Detective Lyle Grant paced the dimly lit bullpen of the Elmwood Heights Police Department like a caged animal, wearing down the same 3 tiles under the harsh glare of overhead fluorescence that buzzed incessantly, casting long shadows across the cluttered desks strewn with half-empty coffee mugs, crumpled reports, and the faint scent of stale takeout that clung to the air like an unspoken regret, the clock on the wall ticking past 1:15 a.m. As the weight of the night's chaos settled into his bones heavier than the 15 pounds he'd gained since his divorce 2 years back, a reminder of how the job had a way of hollowing out the good parts of a man while padding the rest with excuses and empty calories. Brooks was gone, zip-tied and hauled off in the back of a federal van to some holding cell that didn't fly the local flag, and Chief Voss had barricaded himself in his corner office, the door rattling faintly with the force of his pacing, his muffled curses filtering through the frosted glass like steam from a pressure cooker on the verge of blowing, the kind of man who'd built his entire career on the art of containment, containing crowds at protests, containing scandals with a well-timed transfer or a quiet payout from the city's slush fund, containing the nagging doubts that crept in during those rare quiet shifts when the radio went silent, and the mirror showed a stranger staring back with eyes too tired for the badge he still wore like a shield. Grant stopped his circuit long enough to slump into his swivel chair, the leather creaking under him as he rubbed his temples, replaying the surreal takedown in the pharmacy lot. Those MPs materializing out of nowhere like ghosts in tactical gear, their commands crisp and absolute. Colonel Reyes stepping forward with that warrant packet held like a holy writ, her gaze cutting through Voss's bluster as cleanly as a knife through fog, and Brooks' big, brash Harlan flailing against the cuffs with a snarl that dissolved into stunned silence when they read him his rights in that federal monotone that stripped away any illusion of local grace. What fresh nightmare is this? Voss bellowed as he finally burst from his office, his tie askew and shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms mapped with old tattoos from a youth spent chasing adrenaline in ways the department frowned on now, slamming a meaty fist on Grant's desk hard enough to send a stapler skittering to the floor. His face flushed the color of overripe tomatoes under the unforgiving lights. Military police with arrest warrants? Treating us like we're the enemy on some overseas op? Call the mayor, the DA. Hell, call the governor if you have to. This is our town, our call. Grant nodded mechanically, his mind elsewhere, fingers drumming on his keyboard as he pulled up the department's shared drive. The screen's glow, illuminating the fine lines of worry etched deeper around his eyes. A man who'd ridden with Brooks for 5 years through the unglamorous grind of night shifts, pulling drunks from ditches and breaking up domestics that left bruises on everyone involved, always the one to back his partner's play because that's what brotherhood meant in this line of work, a code etched in blood and beer at the end of watch barbecues where stories got taller and truths got buried under layers of just doing the job. But tonight felt different, the federal sweep leaving a chill that no department jacket could ward off. Whispers from the arriving uniforms about Hale's device going off like a flare before the vans hit, and Grant couldn't shake the image of the sergeant's eyes calm, assessing, not a flicker of the panic Brooks always claimed to see in his reports, the kind that justified the taser draws and the knee drops that left marks the internal affairs rubber-stamped with a sigh and a signature. Voss poured himself a tumbler of bourbon from the bottom drawer, single malt. A gift from a grateful developer whose zoning beef got fast-tracked after a discreet chat and shoved a plastic cup Grant's way, the amber liquid sloshing as he growled. Brooks' message from Holding says they grilled him on patterns, like he's some serial something. Claims the watch thing's a setup, entrapment by the brass. We lock our narrative before the sun's up. Hale erratic, non-compliant, armed threat. Union lawyer Carla Zenroot. She'll shred their overreach in court. Grant sipped the burn, letting it steady his nerves, but doubt wormed in like a slow leak. Memories surfacing of that last routine stop 3 months back. The Latino vet tased for a taillight out. Brooks's report painting him as raging while the body cam conveniently glitched showed a man just asking for his wife, Grant signing off because questioning it meant opening the whole rotten crate, the one filled with the 4 complaints against Brooks that Voss had personally archived as training matters, each one from folks who fit the profile in ways that made Grant's stomach turn if he let himself think too long. 20 miles away, in the sterile glow of Fort Liberty's briefing room buried under layers of reinforced concrete and classified protocols, Colonel Elena Reyes stood at the head of a conference table ringed by her hand-picked team, the air humming with the low whir of servers and the sharp scent of fresh brewed coffee from the industrial urn, her tactical vest traded for a crisp blouse, but her posture still radiating the unyielding command of a leader who'd stared down ambushes in Fallujah and lived to brief the aftermath. Hale was in surgery now, the base hospital's trauma team extracting the bullet with the precision of a watchmaker, transfusion lines keeping his pressure steady as monitors beeped a reassuring rhythm, and Reyes' tablets streamed the prelim forensics from the lot. Gun displacement confirmed at 14 inches from initial position, pharmacy cam angles too oblique for faces but clear on the staging nudge, and that audio goldmine from the watch capturing Brooks's mutter post-shot, a venomous stay in your lane next time that hung like evidence in the ether. Kira ran Brooks's digital footprint socials, emails, off-books forums. Reyes directed to Lieutenant Voss, the ops specialist hunched over her dual monitors, her fingers a blur as she cross-referenced against the task force's database, the room's walls lined with screens flickering case files from similar clashes. A black airman roughed up in Texas for suspicious loitering outside his own barracks, a Latina captain cuffed in California for a warrant mismatch that turned out to be a clerical error waved away by the chief. Got hits. Ma'am Brooks attended 3 sovereign law enforcement retreats last year, taxpayer-funded under community outreach, Kira reported. pulling up grainy photos of Brooks in a circle of like-minded badges, arms crossed under banners touting federal overreach and protecting the thin blue from brass bullies, his posts on private cop groups railing against DEI, hires diluting the force with memes that dance too close to lines the department pretended not to see. Reyes's jaw tightened. The pieces slotting into a mosaic her unit had been assembling for months. 47 incidents nationwide where military personnel, especially minorities, faced amplified scrutiny from local forces, often laced with rhetoric that echoed these retreats, a subtle erosion of the alliance between badge and branch that threatened the cohesion America relied on. General Liam Torres's holographic feed crackled to life from the Pentagon, his lined face filling the far wall, the weight of commanding 50,000 souls etching authority into every furrow as he leaned forward, suit jacket shed to reveal a tie clip engraved with his old unit's insignia. Elena, the AG's office is all in civil rights divisions drafting RICO angles if the PD's complicit, which prelim chatter suggests they are. Hale's watchcam snippet? That's prosecutable hate overlay. Loop it with his service record 14 years, 2 bronzes, cyber ops that kept drones from friendly fire. This isn't isolated. It's the tip of our iceberg. Kira patched the audio through, the room falling silent as Brooks's voice filled the space. That casual disdain post pat down, twisting the gut. Think those tags make you untouchable? Wrong neighborhood for that. Followed by the shot's muffled pop and Hale's measured, "I've got a family. Officer, please." Reyes exhaled slow, her mind leaping to contingencies. Lena Hale en route under escort, the sergeant's daughter shielded from the news cycle that would erupt by dawn, and the broader net subpoenas for Brooks's phone logs, warrants for the PD's server room to unearth those buried complaints. "Sir, locals are circling, expect pushback on jurisdiction. We're asserting under the Servicemen's Protection Act." Hale's task force role on LE bias makes this interference with federal ops. Torres nodded, his gaze steel. "Push hard, DUE indicts department. Wide if patterns hold. And get me a timeline on Hale's recovery. His testimony seals it." Back at the station, as the first hints of false dawn grayed the windows, Voss huddled in his office with Union Rep Carla Finch, a sharp-elbowed 52-year-old with a mane of red hair and a briefcase full of precedents that had saved more badges than Grant cared to count, her heels clicking like metronomes as she spread files across the desk, the bourbon bottle now half empty and breathing its oak warmth into the cramped space. "We frame Hale as the instigator late-night drive? No cause? We'll say, suspicious circumstances, lean on the gun as non-disclosure. NC statutes fuzzy enough for wiggle room," Carla outlined, her voice a rapid-fire clip that broke no interruption, but Grant lingered in the doorway, cup in hand, the burn doing little to thaw the ice in his veins as he recalled the body cam pull earlier. Hale's clear announcement, hands high, Brooks's escalation like a fuse lit from both ends. "Carla, the cam footage. It shows compliance, not reach." Grant ventured, his words hanging tentative, earning a sharp glance from Voss that could curdle milk. "Glitch in the scuffle standard malfunction log. You back that, Lyle, or we revisit your sign-off on the Ruiz stop last fall." Grant swallowed the retort, the Ruiz case a ghost he'd tried to outrun. The young mother tased during a welfare check. Brooks's report claiming resistance while the neighbor's ring caught the truth. Grant's endorsement, the key that locked it away, a debt now called due in this federal storm. Carla waved it off, flipping to a template report. Narrative locked, erratic behavior, failure to yield, armed confrontation, press it uniform, no cracks. But cracks spiderwebbed already. Grant's phone buzzed with a text from his ex, frantic about feds knocking for statements. Her worry a echo of the life he'd traded for loyalty to men like Brooks, who bragged at the dartboard about keeping the streets pure over pitchers of cheap lager. Dawn broke proper as federal agents NCIB in unmarked sedans. Windbreakers zipped against the chill, breached the PD's rear entrance with warrants flapping like surrender flags. Agent Tara Lynn at the fore, a 40-year-old ex-MP with a runner's build and eyes that missed nothing, her team fanning out to the records vault with the methodical sweep of a unit clearing a building. "Chief Voss, your assistance is appreciated, but federal supersedes on crimes against active duty personnel stand down or face obstruction," Lynn stated flatly, her warrant citing 18 U.S.C. Section 242 inches bolt caps. Voss blocking the door with arms akimbo, his bluster a thin veil over the panic flickering in his gut as he dialed the mayor's private line for the third time that hour, voicemail mocking him with cheery efficiency. Inside the vault, files cascaded under Lynn's gloved hands, 12 use-of-force incidents tied to Brooks, each cleared with Voss's looping scroll. Emails to Patriot PD Network, decrying federal pets in uniform with attachments of seminar flyers promising tools to reclaim authority. One standout. Brooks's handwritten notes from a retreat, prioritize brass wannabes disrupt before they embed, a blueprint for the very aggression that felled Hale. Grant, cornered in a side interview room by Lynn's partner Sol Ramirez, a grizzled five-year-old with a mustache like a broom bristle and a ledger of corruption cases that spanned decades, faced the mirror wall glare. Ramirez sliding a tablet across the table with stills from Brooks's rally pics, arms raised under banners that twisted patriotism into something sharper. Lyle, you partnered on the Hale stop your initial log says cooperative subject. Brooks amended to aggressive. Which is it? Or is the department's team alignment policy just code for cooking books? Ramirez pressed, his voice low and relentless, the room's recorder whirring soft as Grant shifted, sweat beading under his collar, the weight of complicity crashing down like the gavel it would soon mimic. It was protocol. Chief said, sync reports. Brooks handles the rough edges. I log clean. Ramirez leaned in, dangling the lifeline. Flip now detailed the plants, the buried cams, and we talk reduced exposure. Stonewall and Rico pulls you under with Voss. Grant's mind raced to his daughter in college, the alimony checks bouncing closer each month, the badge that bought respect but sold his soul in installments. Memories flooded of Brooks's post-stop beers, toasting one less headache on the beat, the casual slurs that started as jokes and hardened into habit, and suddenly the blue wall felt less like fortress and more like flood barrier cracking under federal tide. He exhaled, words tumbling. All right. The gun. Brooks kicked it after. Ruiz Cam Voss had IT fix the glitch. And the retreats. He recruited me once, but I passed. It's deeper network chats, off-books trainings pushing back on outsiders in blue and green. Ramirez nodded neutral, recorder capturing every syllable as plea gears turned. Grant's betrayal the first domino in a line that would topple the chief's empire. Reyes monitored the feed from her mobile command post parked discreetly across from the station, Hale's wife Lena arriving under MP escort, her nurse's scrubs rumpled from a rushed drive, clutching a photo of Maya like a talisman as she was ushered to a secure lounge, the sergeant's surgery wrapping with positive notes, artery intact, bone fragments cleared, rehab ahead, but full recovery on the board. Good work. Tara Grant's flipped eyes. Voss direct, Reyes murmured into her calm. Torres's update pinging. Doje indicts on conspiracy if chats confirm network. Hale's bias task force intel aligns 47 cases, 80% minority service members. Brooks's group threading the needle. Kira's map bloomed on the central screen. Red dots clustering from Florida friskings to Midwest detentions. Chat logs linking perps in a blue shield web of shared tactics and shielded sins. Seminars funded by shadowy PACs preaching sovereign policing as antidote to federal intrusion. Voss, sensing the shift, convened an emergency huddle in the break room with the mayor on speaker, bleary-voiced and evasive, and the DA's assistant, a wet behind-the-ears type Voss had mentored through his first plea bargain. Feds are painting us as villains countersue for defamation, harassment, claim Hale's device violated wire statutes, Voss urged, but the mayor cut in sharp. Harlan, leaks our live audios viral, showing your boy's slurs clear as day. City council's breathing down my neck. Cut Brooks loose or we're all sunk. Voss's face drained, the bourbon's warmth turning sour as Carla Finch arrived, her briefcase thumping the table like a judge's gavel, but even she paused at the tablet. Ramirez forwarded anonymously, Grant's prelim statement excerpted, the flip documented in real time. This changes leverage, she admitted, dialing her network for damage control, but Voss waved her silent, retreating to his office to shred what files he could, the safe's tumblers clicking futile against the warrants already sealing digital doors. By noon, indictments cascaded like dominoes. Brooks held on federal attempted assault charges with hate enhancements, Voss for racketeering in the cover pipeline, Grant's immunity provisional pending full debrief, his testimony peeling back layers of the network seminar cash trails to Patriot donors, chat rooms coordinating proactive stops on military plates, a shadow alliance viewing troops as rivals in a turf war no one elected to fight. Hale stirred in recovery under Lena's vigil, Maya's drawing taped to the rail, a stick-figure daddy in green with a shield watch, his voice hoarse but resolute as Rhea's briefed bedside. "Marcus, your gear flipped the script. Brooks's history's unraveling him. Department's fracturing your task force work. It's the key now." Hale gripped her hand faint, pain meds blurring edges, but clarity burning. "He clocked my tags early," Ma'am knew and pushed anyway. "Make it count for the others." Outside, MPs held the perimeter, a living testament to the branch's embrace, while Torres's directive echoed through channels. "Full audit every thread in that chat log leads to daylight." As the sun climbed harsh over Elmwood, the station shrank under federal gaze. Resignations whispered in parking lots, servers imaged and seized, the blue wall's shadows yielding to scrutiny's unrelenting beam. Grant's choice, the crack that let justice flood in, washing clean the sins long sheltered in silence. The federal courthouse in Raleigh stood as a monolithic sentinel of justice under a sky heavy with the promise of spring rain, its granite facade etched with the solemn weight of history and the quiet hum of cases that shaped lives long after the gavels fell silent. 6 months after that fateful night in the Elmwood Heights pharmacy lot, when Sergeant Marcus Hale's world had tilted on the axis of a single, unjustified shot, transforming a routine drive into a reckoning that rippled through corridors of power from local precincts to the hallowed halls of the Pentagon, Harlan Brooks shuffled into the courtroom, flanked by U.S. Marshals whose presence alone seemed to amplify the gravity of his fall. The once imposing officer now diminished in an ill-fitting orange jumpsuit that hung loose on a frame softened by months in pretrial detention, his eyes darting like a cornered fox across the polished oak benches filled with a tapestry of observers. Rows of Hale's fellow soldiers in starched dress greens, their ribbons a silent testament to shared sacrifices. Lena Hale seated front and center, her nurse's poise unbroken but her fingers laced tight around Maya's small hand, the girl's wide eyes taking in the spectacle with a mix of awe and the innocent confusion of a child who'd traded bedtime stories for whispered updates on Daddy's big meeting. A phalanx of reporters from national outlets, notebooks at the ready to chronicle what promised to be a landmark clash between badge and branch, and scattered civilians from Elmwood, some drawn by morbid curiosity, others by a quiet hope that this trial might mend the fractures in their community's trust. Judge Carla Lang, a 58-year-old veteran of the bench with silver-streaked hair pulled into a severe bun and a reputation for rulings as measured as they were merciless, took her seat with a subtle creak of leather, her gavel rapping once to summon order from the murmur, her voice resonant and unyielding as she intoned, "Court is now in session for the United States versus Harlan Brooks and co-defendants. Assistant U.S. Attorney Victor Kane, you may proceed with opening statements." Kane, a wiry 4-5-year-old former JAG officer with a prosecutor's lean intensity and a voice honed to cut through courtroom fog like a beacon, rose smoothly, buttoning his suit jacket as he approached the jury box where 12 ordinary citizens, teachers, mechanics, retirees sat in rapt attention, their faces a cross-section of the nation Hale had sworn to defend. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Kane began, his cadence deliberate, painting the scene with words that evoked the chill of that midnight lot without descending into graphic excess. "This case is not about a tragic mistake in the heat of the moment, nor a split-second decision gone awry. It is about a deliberate abuse of authority by a man entrusted to protect, who instead chose to target Sergeant Marcus Hale, a decorated Black Army intelligence officer with 14 years of honorable service, including operations that safeguarded American lives abroad, simply because he perceived him as an outsider in a neighborhood he deemed his domain. Harlan Brooks did not act alone. His actions were enabled by a culture within the Elmwood Heights Police Department that buried complaints, fabricated reports, and shielded officers from accountability, turning public service into a veil for personal biases. The charges: deprivation of civil rights under color of law, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and enhancements for hate-motivated conduct, rest on irrefutable evidence, audio from Sergeant Hale's service-issued device, witness accounts, digital footprints of extremism, and the testimony of those who finally chose truth over silence. This trial is a call to affirm that no badge grants immunity from the Constitution it swears to uphold. The defense's Mia Harlow, a 50-year-old firebrand with a mane of auburn curls and a track record of wrangling acquittals from juries predisposed to blue loyalty, countered with measured indignation, her heels clicking sharply as she paced, appealing to the panel's innate sympathy for those in harm's way. My client, Officer Brooks, is a dedicated public servant who faced an unknown armed individual in the dead of night, making a judgment call to protect himself and his community under circumstances no amount of federal hindsight can fully capture. The prosecution's narrative paints a conspiracy where none exists, inflating a tragic encounter into a federal spectacle through overzealous military intervention. We will show reasonable fear, procedural adherence, and a department committed to transparency, not malice. The first day unfolded like a meticulously choreographed drama, the prosecution calling Sergeant Hale to the stand early, his limp pronounced but his posture unbowed in the crisp lines of his dress blues, the Purple Heart gleaming on his chest like a badge of battles won and betrayals endured, the cane propped against the witness box a stark prop that drew sympathetic murmurs from the gallery as he settled, his gaze steady on the jury, conveying not bitterness but a quiet resolve forged in the fires of recovery and reflection. Under Kane's gentle guidance, Hale recounted the night with the precision of a debrief, his voice even and evocative. I just left the VFW fundraiser, honoring fallen comrades, men and women who'd given everything for the ideals we all share. The drive home was uneventful until the lights flashed. I pulled over safely, hands visible, announcing every move as trained. Officer Brooks approached with aggression from the start, no greeting, no explanation, just demands laced with an undercurrent that made my instincts flare. I complied fully, even offered my military ID to build rapport, but he dismissed it, escalated the search, discovered my legal sidearm, and within moments, twisted my compliance into a threat. The shot came without warning, without further chance to de-escalate right through my thigh, dropping me to the ground amid the certainty that my family might never hear my voice again. But my watch, it activated protocols designed to protect assets like me, beaming the truth to my command before anyone could alter the scene. The jury leaned forward as Kane cued the enhanced audio from the device, a faint crackle filling the courtroom. Brooks's barked orders giving way to Hale's calm disclosures, the sergeant's plea for peace undercut by the officer's retort. Tags don't mean squat out here, culminating in the shot's muffled report, and Hale's measured gasp, the raw humanity of it landing like a gut punch. Several jurors dabbing eyes while Harlow's objection on prejudicial impact was overruled with Lang's firm. Overruled, the evidence speaks for itself. Cross-examination tested Hale's mettle, Harlow probing for inconsistencies. Sergeant, your military training, doesn't it include evasive maneuvers that could appear threatening to a lay officer? Hale met her eyes without flinching. Ma'am, my training emphasizes de-escalation, first words over weapons, compliance to preserve life. I raised my hands higher than my head, spoke only to affirm my cooperation. What you call evasive was survival instinct against unwarranted hostility. The exchange humanized him further, his poise contrasting Brooks's fidgeting at the defense table, the officer's lawyers whispering furiously as the morning recess broke with Hale's words lingering like an ethical compass reset. Afternoon brought civilian witnesses to broaden the canvas, starting with Maria Ruiz, the 8-year-old pharmacy clerk whose night shift had turned unwitting voyeur, her slight frame swallowed by the witness chair, but her testimony delivered with the unfiltered clarity of someone who'd seen too much dismissed in her own community. Dressed in her work scrubs, a silver cross necklace glinting under the lights, Ruiz described the scene from the store's vantage. I was restocking energy drinks when the cruiser pulled in, saw the driver comply perfectly, hands on the wheel, then stepping out slow like the officer asked. No sudden moves, no arguments. The man even said, "Please, officer," multiple times, offering papers. But the cop, he was yelling before he even got close, like he was spoiling for it. When he found the holster, his whole face changed, and he started talking louder, like for a recording. The shot. It echoed inside the store, made me drop the shelf, saw the man go down, clutching his leg, hands still up till the end. No reaching, no fight, just a dad trying to get home. Kane synced her cell phone video, a shaky clip captured through the glass, to the watch audio, timelines aligning to show Brooks repositioning the firearm post-incident, the jury's notebooks scribbling furiously as Ruiz affirmed under Harlow's cross. "No, ma'am, I know compliance when I see it. My brother's a transit cop in Charlotte. This wasn't that." The emotional pivot came with Detective Lyle Grant's appearance the following day, his immunity deal etched in the pallor of his face and the tremor in his hands as he swore the oath. A 2-year-old everyman broken by the bargain, his uniform traded for a plain gray suit that hung loose from stress-induced weight loss, the gallery murmuring as he took the stand, Voss glaring daggers from the co-defendant's dock where his own racketeering charges simmered. Under Kane's steady questioning, Grant unraveled the department's underbelly with the confessional relief of a man unburdening a decade's worth of complicity. Brooks had a pattern targeting vehicles with military plates or folks who didn't fit late nights, logging suspicious without cause to justify stops that turned rough. I'd back his reports because that's the team way, Chief Voss's line. Protect your own, or the job protects you. But after Hale, seeing the feds with that full recording audio, positioning it cracked me. Voss buried 4 complaints like mine. The Ruiz tasing, a vet cuffed for jaywalking, each cleared with edited cams or lost footage. The retreats Brooks dragged me to? Sovereign shield sessions, funded quiet-like, teaching officers to view feds and military as overreaches, sharing tips on managing diverse hires. I signed off, but Hale's calm. It haunted me. He didn't deserve that. The courtroom hushed as Kane projected redacted chat logs from the Blue Shield network. Brooks's handle Patriot Beat boasting handled another tagger tonight keeps the streets ours linked to PAC donations. Voss had funneled through sick Grants, the web of influence sprawling like veins under skin. Grant's voice cracking on cross as Harlow hammered. Detective, your cooperation reeks of self-preservation, why not speak sooner? Grant met herhase, shoulders squaring. Because I was part of it, ma'am, blind loyalty till it blinded me to right. Hale's family? Maya's drawings in the hospital file, they woke me up. Voss's trial, running parallel in the adjacent chamber, fed cross-pollination. His ledger of hush money and seminar sign-ups exposed as the syndicate's spine, the chief's bluster crumbling under his own deputy's testimony, the jury in Brooks's case absorbing it as pattern, not anomaly. Brooks himself took the stand midweek, a gamble Harlow pitched as redemption. But his delivery unraveled like frayed rope, sweat beading on his brow under the spotlights as he gripped the rail, recounting a sanitized version. Late shift, suspicious vehicle weaving standard stop. He got antsy, reached low. I reacted to protect my life, the public's trust. Kane's redirect was surgical, looping the audio where Brooks's voice snarled wrong turf for your kind. The officer's seminars projected with his highlighted notes on neutralizing external authorities, and Grant's logs contradicting every embellishment. Officer Brooks, your chats celebrate proactive management of military personnel. How does that square with fearing for your life? Kan prest, Brooks stammering context, pressure. As the jury's expressions hardened, whispers of not buying it filtering from the back. Expert witnesses rounded the evidentiary arc, a DOJ behavioral analyst charting Brooks's systemic bias profile from 18 logged incidents, a cyber forensics specialist tracing the network's digital breadcrumbs to interstate trainings that blurred lines between seminar and strategy session, and finally, General Liam Torres himself, towering in full dress with a chest full of fruit salad, his testimony a masterclass in institutional gravity. Sergeant Hale's service saved lives in ops that demanded trust across branches. Attacking him strikes at that foundation, eroding the unity our nation depends on. The protocols that responded his devices alert exist to safeguard those who safeguard us, ensuring no echo of battlefield peril follows them home. Harlow's motions for mistrial on prejudicial military pomp fell flat, Lang sustaining with the witness speaks to relevance, counsel, not spectacle. Deliberations stretched 2 taut days. The courthouse a pressure cooker of sideline spectators, Hale's unit drilling formations in the plaza as silent protest. Lena reading Maya picture books in the family room to shield her from the tension, reporters trading scoops on the leaks that painted Brooks's holding cell calls as defiant rants against the brass takeover. The jury foreman, a retired postal worker with a son in ROTC, returned with verdicts etched in finality. Guilty on all counts, civil rights deprivation, conspiracy, hate enhancement, each guilty, a hammer blow that echoed through the chamber, Brooks slumping as marshals cuffed him anew, Voss's adjacent feed confirming his own collapse under parallel charges. Sentencing convened a fortnight later under the same vaulted ceiling, Lang's robes flowing as she addressed the packed room, her words a blueprint for reform wrapped in rebuke. Mr. Brooks, you swore to serve all, yet chose division, targeting a man whose valor embodied the very freedoms you patrol. Your actions, enabled by a department's willful blindness, demand not just punishment but precedent life imprisonment without parole, the full measure under federal statutes, to affirm that authority unchecked breeds injustice unchecked. Voss drew 20 years for racketeering, his empire dismantled in asset freezes and ethics probes. Grant, true to his deal, 6 months community service mentoring youth programs, his testimony the pivot that spared deeper cuts. The verdicts cascaded into waves of change, the Hale Protocol rolling out Pentagon-wide, mandatory distress beacons for off-base personnel, integrated Fed hotlines for alien encounters, annual joint trainings emphasizing mutual respect over rivalry, with Elmwood's PD reborn under monitors, diversity quotas enforced, body cams tamper-proof, a civilian oversight board stocked with voices from the margins. Hale's rehab became legend in base lore, 8 months of grueling PT turning limp to stride, his thigh scar a map of resilience as he returned to duty. Promoted to staff sergeant with a task force expanded to probe those 47 cases and beyond, briefing recruits on the night that nearly ended him. It tested us, but it taught us unity over uniforms, truth over tribe. Lena's clinic bloomed with a veterans wing funded by reform grants, Maya sketching murals of caped soldiers and helpful cops for the lobby walls, her innocence a balm that softened the edges of advocacy. Colonel Reyes earned her star in the fallout, her unit's map now a national grid exposing the Blue Shield tendrils. Legislation christened the Servicemen's Unity Act, mandating federal review of badge branch clashes, its preamble invoking Hale's calm compliance as the gold standard. Torres addressed the Joint Chiefs in a closed briefing, screens alive with metrics of lives touched. One sergeant's stand shielded thousands, proof that vigilance at home mirrors the vigilance abroad. The pharmacy lot, once a scar on Elmwood's map, transformed into a community garden under Hale's sponsorship, benches engraved with From Fracture to Foundation, where soldiers and locals gathered for barbecues that bridged divides, Maya's laughter mingling with badge stories retold without bravado. Brooks faded into supermax obscurity, his appeals a whisper against the wall of precedent, while Grant volunteered at youth centers, his second-chance speeches warning of loyalty's blind alleys. Reyes pinned Hale's commendation in a quiet ceremony, the room hushed as he spoke. Not my win, ours. For every service member scanning mirrors for threats, know this. The line holds because we hold it together. As rain finally broke over Raleigh, washing the courthouse steps clean, the trial's echo lingered not in vengeance, but in vigilance. A narrative arc bent toward equity, where one unjust night birthed the dawn of deliberate dawn, ensuring the shadows of bias yielded to the light of collective resolve.